I covered $4,375 for our family's Christmas getaway, but they set off without me and called me controlling when I scrapped the whole trip on Christmas Eve. I financed 80% of the family's holiday and handled all the arrangements, yet everyone made their own travel plans and kicked off the vacation without me. So I called off all my arrangements. I'm 28, the family's go-to planner, and the one with the steadiest income among my siblings. My parents are retired, living on a fixed budget. My older brother, Jason, 31, is in construction, but his work dries up in winter, making finances tight. My younger sister, Erin, 25, just finished grad school, juggling loan repayments and a part-time job while hunting for full-time work. I'm in tech, earning well, so I've taken on organizing family trips and covering more than my share to ensure we can all spend time together, knowing money's tight for the others. 6 months ago, my mom mentioned how she longed for the big family Christmases of our childhood and suggested doing something special since Erin graduated, and Jason's fiancée, Lena, might soon join the family. I got excited and started researching options for a memorable Christmas vacation. After exploring several possibilities, I found a stunning mountain lodge in Colorado that could sleep 8, with a spacious kitchen for group cooking, a cozy fireplace, and a hot tub, the whole package. The photos were breathtaking. The cost for a week over Christmas was $5,500, which gave me pause, but I thought about the joy it would bring and how we hadn't gathered for a holiday in nearly 3 years. When I pitched the idea in our family group chat, everyone was thrilled. Mom started planning her baking list, Jason and Lena confirmed they were on board, Erin was ecstatic about a snowy Christmas, and Dad was already picking out movies for fireside nights. That's when I made what I thought was a generous offer. I wanted to make this happen for us, so I offered to cover most of the cost since I knew budgets were tight. I proposed paying $4,000 of the $5,500, leaving $1,500 to be split among my parents, Jason and Lena, Erin, and me. That meant each person only needed to chip in $375, which seemed manageable. My total contribution would be $4,375, nearly 80% of the cost. Everyone thanked me profusely, saying it was incredibly kind. Jason said he and Lena couldn't have afforded it otherwise. Erin got emotional, saying how much a family Christmas meant after a tough grad school year. My parents kept expressing gratitude for making this reunion possible. I felt great about bringing everyone together. I put the full $5,500 on my credit card, booked the lodge, and expected everyone to pay me their $375 shares before the trip. Over the next 2 months, I handled all the planning, researching local activities, finding good restaurants, organizing group meals, and coordinating time off work. Everyone seemed excited, sharing ideas and talking about how fun it would be. 2 months before the trip, I reminded everyone about their $375 payments to help me clear my credit card. They all agreed and thanked me again for covering so much. But as the trip approached, I noticed some red flags, though I brushed them off to avoid seeming overly controlling. 3 weeks before departure, I asked for the $375 payments. Jason said he and Lena were still scraping funds together and asked to pay me after Christmas when his next big job came through. Erin mentioned unexpected expenses and asked to pay in installments over a few months. My parents agreed to pay, but asked to wait until after the trip due to medical bills. I was frustrated but didn't want to ruin the holiday over money, so I agreed they could pay me later. Though it was only $375 each, I trusted they'd come through, and I didn't want to stress anyone out before what was meant to be a joyful family trip I was largely funding. A week before the trip, things took a strange turn. I'd planned a detailed itinerary with daily activities, restaurant bookings, and grocery lists for our group cooking nights, all shared with everyone. But 4 days before we were set to leave, I asked the group chat to confirm flight details for airport pickups, and things unraveled. Jason said he and Lena opted to drive to save money and were leaving a day early for a road trip. Erin revealed she'd booked a flight arriving 2 days early to hang out with a friend. My parents said they'd stick to the original day but had switched to a cheaper flight, saving them $100 each. I was stunned and hurt. I pointed out that we'd planned this as a family trip to travel and spend the week together. But now everyone was making separate plans that excluded me. It felt like they were treating it as individual vacations at the same lodge, not the family holiday I'd envisioned and was funding 80% of. Things got tense. Jason called me controlling, saying it didn't matter when everyone arrived as long as we were together for Christmas. Erin asked why I was fixated on travel plans when the goal was to be together. My parents said they were just saving money and didn't see the issue. I explained that I'd worked hard and spent over $4,000 to make this a family experience, but it felt like they were using it as a subsidized vacation rental for their own plans. Jason got defensive, saying I was being dramatic and that everyone was still coming. Erin said I was unfair and that they were still excited, but their responses showed they didn't grasp why I was upset, which hurt more. The next day, I tried to salvage things, asking if we could at least arrive at the lodge by a set time on Christmas Eve for a family dinner and gift exchange. I offered to adjust my travel plans to make it work. No one responded for 12 hours. Then Jason said he and Lena had booked a restaurant for Christmas Eve and couldn't change it. Erin said she might be with her friend and would try to reach the lodge by Christmas morning. My parents confirmed they'd be there, but had booked an early flight home the next day for a deal, cutting their stay short. I was furious. It felt like everyone was treating the lodge I'd paid $4,375 for as a base for their own vacation plans, despite my financial sacrifice for a family event. I called my mom, hoping for clarity. She was surprised I was upset, saying she thought I'd be happy everyone was still going, even with different schedules. I explained that I'd planned and paid for a family experience, but it felt like everyone was using it for their own vacations. She said she understood, but thought I was expecting too much coordination. That call left me angrier, as no one seemed to get why I was hurt, and I wondered if I was being unreasonable. 2 days before departure, Jason texted that he and Lena were leaving for their road trip. Erin said she was at the airport for her early flight. My parents texted that they'd switched to an earlier flight that evening to start their vacation. I was at work, gutted, realizing everyone had begun the trip without me, despite my planning and $4,375 investment. I texted to see if anyone wanted to meet up when I arrived, but got no replies for hours. Jason eventually said they were driving with bad signal. Erin said she was busy but excited to see me, and my parents didn't respond. That evening, packing for a trip that no longer felt like mine, I realized I'd arrive at a lodge where everyone had already started their own vacations. The family holiday I'd funded and planned was gone. I couldn't sleep, torn between hurt and anger, wondering if I was overreacting. The next morning, I was set to fly out. Still upset, I texted the group to check in and ask if I should grab anything from the airport. Jason said he and Lena were hiking and loving it. Erin sent a selfie with her friend, planning to ski. My parents said the lodge was amazing and they were exploring town. It hit me. Everyone was enjoying their own holidays, using the lodge I'd paid $4,375 for as their hub. I'd arrived to people already set in their routines, excluding me despite my investment. Staring at my packed bag and flight confirmation, I made a choice I'm still unsure about. I texted the group that I was unwell and couldn't make the trip, wishing them a good time and suggesting we plan something later. My phone blew up. Jason called, genuinely concerned, suggesting I rest. Erin offered help, and I said I needed sleep. My parents called, worried about me being sick alone. I felt guilty lying, but didn't want to ruin their trip with the truth. For 2 days, I got texts with well wishes and photos of their activities. Jason and Lena hiking, Erin snowboarding, my parents at the Christmas market. They were enjoying the vacation I'd made possible. On Christmas Eve, the tone shifted. Erin asked when I'd feel better for the gift exchange. My parents asked if I wanted them to save Christmas dinner. Jason checked if I'd join later. They expected me to show up and finish funding their vacation. I sent a group message, admitting I wasn't sick but felt hurt and excluded when they made separate plans and started without me. I said it felt like they treated the trip I'd funded as individual vacation rentals, not a family event. The response was harsh. Jason called, furious, accusing me of lying and making them worry for no reason. Erin texted, hurt that I wasn't honest and thought I was punishing them for not following my plans. My parents called, and my dad was upset, saying I'd ruined Christmas over travel schedules. I explained that their individual plans made it feel like they didn't value the family trip I'd funded, but they focused on my lie. My mom called post-Christmas, calmer. She said after scrambling for hotels, Jason's comment about not following my itinerary made her see my perspective. She realized they'd treated the trip differently than I'd intended, ignoring the family focus I'd funded. She asked me to talk to my dad, who was upset about their hotel costs. That talk was tough, but productive. He hadn't realized how their separate plans made me feel excluded from the trip I'd funded. He understood my cancellation was a reaction to feeling unappreciated, though he wished I'd spoken up sooner. We agreed everyone contributed to the mess. Erin called, hurt, but less angry. She felt punished for not knowing my expectations and said she'd have adjusted if I'd been clearer. I explained I tried raising concerns, but felt ignored, especially given my financial stake. She admitted prioritizing her friend and offered to pay her $375 share, which I appreciated. Jason's been tougher. He called, still angry, calling my cancellation vengeful. I explained it wasn't about control, but feeling like they used my $4,375 for their own getaway. He felt I expected too much family time and got defensive. We didn't resolve things. and he hasn't offered to pay his $375. Lena texted an apology, but said I'd put Jason in a tough spot. Financially, I'm out $5,500. Aaron and my parents offered to pay their $375 shares, which helps. But Jason hasn't and thinks I should bear the loss for canceling. My mom suggested a spring break trip with clearer communication. Aaron proposed upfront payments and defined expectations, which I like. I'm still unsure if I was the asshole. I could have handled my frustration better and set clearer expectations, but I also feel my family took my generosity for granted, ignoring how their choices undermined the experience I'd funded. It's been 3 months since the Christmas debacle, and the fallout from canceling the family trip still lingers, shaping how I navigate my relationships with my family. The spring break trip my mom suggested hasn't materialized yet, but conversations about it have revealed new layers of tension, understanding, and tentative steps toward reconciliation, or in some cases, deeper rifts. Here's what's happened since my last update, keeping the same level of detail and emotional weight as the original story. After Aaron's suggestion to plan a new trip with clearer expectations and upfront payments, I was cautiously optimistic. I wanted to believe we could learn from the Christmas mess and rebuild our family connection. My mom took the lead, sending a group chat message in early January proposing a long weekend getaway in April, somewhere closer and cheaper, like a lakeside cabin a few hours' drive from home. The cost would be around $2,000 for 4 nights, split evenly among the 5 of us, Jason and Lena counting as one share, so $400 each. No one objected outright, but the enthusiasm from the Christmas planning days was noticeably absent. I decided to take Aaron's advice and set boundaries early. I replied to the group saying I was open to the idea, but wanted everyone to confirm their commitment and pay their share up front before booking. I also suggested we have a video call to agree on what kind of trip this would be, group activities, shared meals, or more flexible plans, so we're all on the same page. My parents and Aaron agreed quickly, but Jason didn't respond for 2 days. When he finally did, he said he and Lena were tentatively in but needed to check their finances, as work was slow. I felt a familiar knot in my stomach, remembering the unpaid $375 from Christmas, but I didn't push it yet. The video call happened a week later, and it was awkward at first. My dad opened by saying he hoped we could move past the holidays and focus on making new memories. My mom nodded, adding that she thought the Christmas trip failed because we didn't communicate well. I appreciated their effort, but felt they were glossing over my side of things. Erin, to her credit, spoke up, saying she realized she'd taken my Christmas planning for granted and wanted to make this trip more collaborative. Jason, though, was quiet, arms crossed on the screen, and Lena looked uncomfortable next to him. I took a deep breath and laid out my perspective, trying to be clear without sounding accusatory. I said I was happy to contribute to another trip, but needed assurance it would be a group effort, not just me planning and funding while others did their own thing. I brought up the $4,375 I'd lost on Christmas, not to guilt anyone, but to explain why I was hesitant to take on that role again. My parents nodded, and Aaron looked genuinely remorseful. Jason, however, scoffed and said, "You keep bringing up the money like we owe you something. You chose to cancel, man." Lena nudged him, but he didn't back down. That comment stung, and I responded more sharply than I intended. I said I'd canceled because I felt like the family trip I'd funded was turned into everyone's personal vacation, and I was left out despite my investment. I asked Jason if he thought it was fair that he and Lena used the lodge I paid for as a base for their road trip while ignoring the family plans. He got defensive, saying he didn't realize I expected them to report to me every day, and that he thought the trip was a gift, not a contract. The call ended abruptly when my mom stepped in, suggesting we cool off and revisit later. The next day, Erin texted me privately, apologizing for Jason's attitude. She said he was stressed about money and felt embarrassed about not paying his Christmas share, which made him lash out. She also sent me $200 via Venmo, half her $375 from the canceled trip, saying she'd pay the rest next month. I thanked her, feeling a bit lighter, but I couldn't shake Jason's words. My parents also sent their $375 a few days later, with a note saying they hoped it helped and wanted to make things right. Jason and Lena, predictably, didn't offer anything. By February, the spring trip planning stalled. My mom tried to keep it alive, suggesting we book the cabin soon to secure a spot, but Jason still hadn't confirmed, and I wasn't willing to cover anyone's share this time. I told the group I'd pay my $400 once everyone else did, and I'd help plan if we agreed on a group itinerary. Aaron and my parents sent their payments, but Jason said he and Lena couldn't afford it until his next job in March. I held firm, saying we'd wait until everyone was ready, but privately I was frustrated. It felt like the same pattern, me waiting for others to step up while the burden fell on me. Around this time, I started therapy to process the anger and guilt from Christmas. My therapist helped me see that my role as the family provider had created unhealthy dynamics. I'd assumed paying for things would bring us closer, but it often left me feeling used and resentful. She suggested I set firmer boundaries and communicate my needs earlier, even if it felt uncomfortable. This perspective was eye-opening, and I decided to apply it to the spring trip and beyond. In mid-March, Jason finally texted the group saying he and Lena could pay their $400 if we booked by the end of the month. Relieved, I sent my share, and we reserved the cabin. During another video call, we agreed on a mix of group activities, like a lake hike and 2 shared dinners, and free time for individual plans. I felt hopeful, thinking we'd finally found a balance. But a week before the trip, Jason threw a curveball. He texted that he and Lena wanted to bring a friend who'd crash on the couch to save costs, promising they'd cover his food. I was annoyed, as this wasn't discussed, and it felt like another unilateral decision. I called Jason directly, keeping my therapist's advice in mind. I said I was uncomfortable with adding someone to a family trip we'd carefully planned, especially since space was tight. I asked why he hadn't brought it up earlier. He got defensive again, saying I was gatekeeping the trip and that his friend wouldn't be a bother. I pointed out that the trip was meant for family bonding, and adding someone changed the dynamic. He snapped, saying, "You're not paying for it this time, so why do you care?" I reminded him I'd lost $4,375 on the last trip, partly because of similar disregard for group plans. He hung up. Aaron and my parents backed me when I raised the issue in the group chat, saying a friend didn't fit the family focus. Jason reluctantly agreed to drop it, but his resentment was palpable. When we arrived at the cabin in April, the tension was thick. My parents and Aaron made an effort, and we had some good moments, cooking together, laughing during a board game night. But Jason and Lena kept their distance, spending most of their free time away from the group. When we did group activities, Jason was polite but disengaged, and Lena followed his lead. It wasn't the warm family reunion I'd hoped for, but it was better than Christmas. After the trip, my mom called to say she thought it was a step forward, even if imperfect. She admitted Jason's attitude worried her and offered to mediate a conversation between us. I agreed, and we met at my parents' house last week. Jason started by saying he felt I'd been holding the Christmas cancellation over his head, making him feel like the bad guy. I explained that I wasn't trying to guilt him, but needed him to see how his actions, like separate plans and not paying his share, made me feel unvalued, especially after my $4,375 loss. He admitted he hadn't thought about how his road trip affected the family dynamic and apologized, but it felt half-hearted. He still didn't offer to pay his $375, saying he'd make it up another way. Lena, who'd been quiet, spoke up, saying she felt caught in the middle and didn't realize how much the Christmas trip meant to me. She offered to pay half of their $375 share, which surprised me. I accepted, and she sent $187.50 later that day. It wasn't much, but it felt like a gesture of goodwill. Jason, though, seemed annoyed by it, and I suspect it caused tension between them. Financially, I'm still reeling from the $5,500 loss, though Aaron's $375, fully paid now, my parents' $375, and Lena's $187.50 have softened the blow slightly. Jason's refusal to pay his share remains a sore point. Emotionally, I'm torn. The spring trip showed we can compromise, but Jason's resentment and my lingering hurt suggest deeper issues. My therapist says I need to decide how much I'm willing to invest, emotionally and financially, in family events moving forward. I'm planning a small birthday dinner for my dad next month, but I've asked everyone to split the cost evenly and confirm plans up front. Aaron and my parents are on board, but Jason hasn't responded yet. I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I'm also bracing for another round of frustration. I've learned that generosity doesn't guarantee gratitude, and family doesn't always mean unity. Whether we can rebuild or drift further apart, only time will tell. Am I still the asshole? I think I've grown in setting boundaries, but I wonder if I'm too rigid now, holding on to the Christmas hurt too tightly. Jason's apology felt hollow, but maybe I'm expecting too much. I want my family back, but not at the cost of my peace.